we are going to look at what we talked about earlier about getting rid of this background of the rocket without using eraser, but using a layer mask instead. So the first thing I did was I imported a background here. So I'm going to use this planet with space here, this planet Earth. And then I pasted another layer. So you can see I got two more layers here. I pasted a layer of a rocket ship on top. But now the problem is I want to get rid of this background here around the rocket. All right, so step one, the thing we learned was down here in the masking area. You can see I have my layer mask. So if I click on that, I've added a layer mask up here at the top, right here, layer one, right? And I can go with my black paintbrush, which is over here, right? So here's my paintbrush, and I'm going to select black. Now over here, this little arrow here allows me to flip-flop these two colors. If I click on it, I don't know if it'll work with my zoom here. And then this little guy here is my default black and white. So I'm going to select my default black and white. I'm going to flip-flop those two colors, look, it worked perfectly. So this is what I'm going to work with right here. So my brush, up here at the top. Remember, I can adjust my brush size here. So if I click on this, this is the size of my brush here. This is the hardness of my brush. A hard brush will give you, I can't slide that in the zoom. A hard brush will give you a super hard outline. A soft brush will give you a very soft outline. 85% is usually a good place to start. Another shortcut for doing your brushes is if you click the parentheses keys by the letter P on your keyboard, you can make your brush bigger or smaller on the fly. All right, so then I'm going to start painting here. And this gets rid of my background. So this is great, but the problem is you got to get in close. You got to do all sorts of stuff using your finger. It's not such a great thing to do. Also, make sure your opacity is at 100% up here. This is where you control the amount of white, black, or gray that's happening. So what I'm going to do is instead of just sort of painting that freehand, I have a couple of choices here. One is I can use this selecting tool here. This is called the magnetic lasso tool. Right? And if I hold down on this, there's some other lassos under here, but the magnetic is the one I'm going to use. If I zoom into my rocket here a little bit and I click on the edge, it's going to put an anchor point down, and then it's just going to run a line along a color difference, right? So here I got that white, and I have that off-white color of the rocket. So I'm just dragging along here. Every once in a while I'm clicking my mouse, otherwise I really don't even need to. Just when you get into like a detailed area, you might want to click your mouse, like so. As I get to the bottom down here, if I run out of room, I can hold down the space bar and I can drag my rocket up in this direction, and then I'm going to keep running it along. Oops, see, that's where I might click an anchor point out here, like so, all the way down to the bottom to this point, click an anchor point, come back up this way, like so, like so. All right, and then again, this is going to take a while. I don't want to take all our video time up here, so I'm just going to quickly, like this, and the great thing is I can go back and fix my layer mask if I make a little mistake. Oops, like there. So I'm going to go here, I'm going to go up here. I'm hurrying, so I'm starting to make a mess until I get here, and you can see how it makes a 0 or a little circle next to my magnetic lasso when I close the line. That means I'm finishing off my selection like so. So if I want to refine my selection, I can absolutely do that. Up here at the top, this is the add to your selection. This is the redo selection, add to selection, minus, and then intersect. So here I'm going to do the minus. For this one, I'm going to use a different tool. I'm going to use, sorry, I lost my mouse for a second there. I'm going to use a regular lasso tool for this one, and I'm going to use the minus. All right, and I'm going to go here, and I'm going to just subtract this part of my selection here if I want to, like this. There we go, so that selected that part. And then I'm going to go to the add, which is up here, and I'm going to add, maybe I'd use a magnetic one for this one. I'm going to add this one like this, and I'm going to add this part of the selection here. All right, and again, you get the point. So you're going to refine your selection. But then the great thing is, once this is selected like this, Command minus zooms us out, is if I, let's right-click on this guy here, delete layer mask. And if I put on a layer mask while this is selected, watch what happens. Boom. It automatically makes a layer mask based on the selection that you made, which is totally awesome, right? Then if I want to refine this layer mask, remember I can double-click on this layer mask. It brings me into mask and selection. If I don't see that, I can just click the little button that sends me here. And then I can shift the edge in a little bit. I can bring it in a little tighter. So it gets rid of some of that other chatter out there. I can feather the edge a little bit. That feather worked great. I don't want to feather too much because then my rocket sort of turns into nothing. But I can feather that edge a little bit so it feels like it fits in a little bit better. I can also smooth out the edge of my selection a little bit like that. All right, so that was pretty dynamite, right? There's my rocket. Super fast, much easier, much cleaner than trying to do that all by hand. So let's delete this layer mask again and start over. So that's one tool you can use. That was the magnetic lasso right up here. Now the next tool you can use is right below it, right? And that tool is right here. And this is called the quick selection tool or the magic wand tool. Let's use the magic wand first. What that does is if I click just in this white background, look at that, it automatically selected everything that is that same color, right? It's selecting by color. If I have the add up here, which I do, right, up here, I can click down here and add another range of color. I can click down here, I can add this part, I can add the shadow. That shadow's already added, and I can add this little bit up here in the tip, just like so. Again, so now I have my selection. I go to layer mask. Oops, sorry. I forgot that I was selecting the background and not the rocket this time. So what I need to do is go to select and go to inverse, right? And then I'm going to select the inverse. So now I've selected the rocket and not the background. And then I get rid of it just like that. And once again, I can double click on this and I can feather the edges a little bit. And I can shift the edge in a little bit. Makes it look good. Now I'm getting a little bit of problem on the outside edge of my mask here because, hang on, because if you look at my layer mask over here, right, looking at my layer mask, you can see that it's black around the rocket, but then it's white around the outside edge, just like this, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to fill that in with black as well. So what I'm going to do, because you can see here, like you can actually see the physical edge of this mask here. So there's a couple ways to do it. You can use the paint bucket. I'm going to try the paint bucket, but I'm afraid, here's a paint bucket right here. I'm afraid that if I use the paint bucket, I may end up bleeding into the rocket at the tip up here, but we'll see what happens. So I'm going to click. Yeah. So the problem is it leaked in through the nose of the rocket. You can see right here where there's a break. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use my paintbrush. And I'm going to click on my paintbrush. I'm going to paint this out black. Let's make the brush bigger in certain areas over here. Going to paint this out until I get closer to the end of the rocket here. I'm going to have to be more careful with that. All right, bring the rocket up, paint down here, so point out here, and just like that. And let me paint over here. There we go. Now if you look over here at my layer mask, you can see I painted the whole thing black. So that just helps a little bit. You can also see these little white dots by the fire back here. So what I might do is, you know, you can clean this up and just make sure that everything is all dark and put away there. So that's it. So once you have your object selected here, oops, click on my object itself. I can move this around. The layer mask moves with it, which is kind of cool. I can duplicate this layer. If I right-click on this layer, I can say duplicate layer. Okay. So now I have a second rocket ship here, and I can put this one smaller in the background. So again, you know, just like we learned in Illustrator, it's great to make duplicates of things, right? Why reinvent the wheel? So here I got this rocket shooting here. So this could be like on your album cover. Possibly you have, let's take that. Let's make another copy of this one here, duplicate layer. You could have all these rockets leaving Earth. All right, so maybe that's your thing. So I'm going to have a small, medium, and large. This would be asymmetrical design. Then I hit remember I'm hitting my check mark up here anytime I make a change. And there you go. So let me zoom out a little bit. That looks pretty cool. Again, selecting a layer I want to move. Let's move this guy out here a little bit. And then I could put the title of my album down here, and I could put the other information up there at the top. And that's it. And again, remember, when you're ready to save it, you're going to say File. You're going to say Save As. You are going to go to Photoshop. You're going to say JPEG. And you're going to give it a title and save it as a JPEG. And that will be the image you would turn in. Also, don't forget this tool over here. As we're learning, this is the cropping tool. Remember this guy right here. And then up here, we're going to do, there's this drop-down menu. We're going to do WH resolution. We're going to say 8 by 8 by 150 or whatever your size is going to be. And you're going to crop it before you actually turn it in as well. All right, that's all I got. Good luck.